They're all your favourite words, aren't they? Critical race theory,
I
gender
know.
politics, identity politics, white privilege and intersectionality. How to start a debate.
All the things that keep me up at night.
Absolutely. There is something curious. I mean, I think Macron's onto something here because he's pointing out things that certainly I've said, I know you've said as well. And that is the kind of counterproductive nature of some of these initiatives or this way of thinking.
Yeah, and it's just I think one thing that he made very clear is the fact that this just doesn't end, right? If you're going to slice up someone just based on arbitrary markers of some sort of identity group, it will never end. I mean, yesterday we had someone identifying as a Korean and getting £18,000 worth of surgery
Yeah.
um, to become transracial, which has now become, unfortunately, the wokies didn't like that because somehow being identifying as a different race is completely different to identifying as
Yes,
a
that
gender.
apparently that really discombobulated them, didn't it? Because at one point they would have normally been okay with somebody deciding they can be whatever they want to be, but once this guy crossed the ethnicity line, then
Yeah.
he was also person non grata.
Exactly. And I think that just highlights the hypocrisy of the whole sort of debate. I just think, I get embarrassed for companies that decide to go down the route. I look at it and I cringe inside because I just think, how short-sighted must you be to really risk this for something like, putting your pronouns in your bio or having a
Yeah.
rainbow as your new logo. Or so. It's just so short-sighted and it's so counter what business is about, which is just providing goods and
Sure.
services. I don't really want my ice cream yelling at the home
Yeah.
secretary. I mean, are we kidding?
But isn't one of the problems, Esther, that big companies and corporations and institutions and governments do tend to roll over and accept this stuff because I suppose it's too galling to think of the alternative. Because if somebody knocks on your door and says, would you like us to train your staff to make them more racially aware? Because you might have, without realizing it, a lot of closet racists in there. Would you like us to help with that? And of course, companies think, well, if I say no, then people are going to think I've got something to hide. So they all go, yeah, all right, here's £50,000. Come and winkle out the racists for us.
Yeah, and I think it's really embarrassing because they often go in with the whole, oh, it's just to train unconscious bias. Well, if the bias is unconscious, then it's probably not going to manifest itself anyway. I mean, why would you actually spend money to effectively cure something that might not even exist? I just think it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's almost paradoxical.
Yeah.
If you're talking about race, then surely it can't be theorized because a theory hasn't been proven yet.
Yeah.
If we've proven that race exists in the complex way that it does, and that human beings have different features, even though we're still human beings at the end of the day, then surely the idea of putting race and theory in the same sentence should be absurd.
Of course.
But it's become a money-making scheme. It's become a new wing of most HR departments.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
become sort of a marketing campaign for certain businesses that are run by people with certain skin colors. I mean, it has its own, it's now its own corporation.
It's extraordinary area to circumnavigate, and that the bit that always really boils my spuds, Esther, is when something happens, and I'm trying to think of the best example. I think there was Marks and Spencer's about a year ago. You may remember they sold a bra that had the wrong colour.
Yeah.
Or they called it tobacco colour, I think, or something like that. And somebody complained about this and said that all the white bras had nice names and pretty names and girly names. And then the brown bra was called tobacco brown or something like that, which just happens to be artistically the way that a colour chart works. But and instead of Marks and Spencer's saying, when this woman complained, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. We didn't set out to do anything. We're not going to change it. It's just the name of the colour. Instead of doing that, they roll over and say, we're very, very sorry. We've learnt from our mistakes. We will never do this again.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Companies don't have a backbone anymore. They're willing to risk it for the small minority of very loud, crazy activists than just sticking it out, doing what they do as a business, and just catering to the mainstream audience.
Yeah.
And then in turn, it effectively creates a sort of contempt for the people that mainly buy from you. So
Yep.
it's counterproductive. I mean, if they named the color mahogany, someone would have complained. If they named it chocolate, someone would have complained.
Of course they
If
would.
they say
Yeah.
you're stereotyping
Yeah,
skin
yeah.
color.
And
Yeah, someone should have just said, you have too much time on your hands, get over it.
So, indeed, but that never gets said. And just a final point, Esther, I mean, the overarching question we're throwing out here is who or what is driving this agenda? What do you think's behind it?
I think it's people that make money from the fact that society keeps having these mundane conversations. Mm-hmm. If you walk on the street and you have a conversation with 99% of the country, they're pretty level-headed. They realize that men are not women, women are not men, biology matters, race exists, but it shouldn't define us. Most people are quite level-headed, but then you have this small outraged mob on Twitter mostly that find a way to get a foothold and decide to be offended by everything. So I think it's just there's someone in the background that is benefiting from us repeatedly having these ridiculous conversations.
Yeah. I saw somebody about a year ago suggest that you had black privilege, and I thought this is a confusing one. I didn't even know where to start in unraveling that one. So people are entitled to their opinions, I suppose. The bottom line is, who cares?